Keir Starmer now says he's the guy that's going to control our borders. The same Keir Starmer that decriminalised illegal immigration, has prioritised illegals over our own good people, has thrown them into hotels and generally prioritised them for housing as well, and wanted to make sure that anyone who spoke out against illegal immigration was called far right and put in prison. But now suddenly he's all for it. He also says that those arriving in our country should speak English. Maybe he could go to Birmingham or Bradford or Luton or Leicester or any other of his voting areas and say that, because none of them will understand a bloody word.
Katie Hopkins has launched a blistering attack on Keir Starmer, one that sent shockwaves through the political sphere. This wasn't a measured policy discussion. It was a calculated and cutting critique, laced with biting humor and moments of brutal honesty that left audiences first laughing and then silent. The exchange quickly went viral, spreading across social media platforms like wildfire, with many calling it one of the most ruthless political takedowns of the year. In recent footage from June 2025, Hopkins is seen at her sharpest dissecting Starmer's leadership with ferocity and precision. Whether you agree with her or not, it's the kind of political commentary that demands attention. Brace yourself, this is one segment you'll want to see for yourself.
Morning, it's Keir here. My director of strategy, who's a right ginger, has said that I should explain our new policy on migration very simply. So before, we loved illegals. We couldn't get enough of illegals. Illegals, come, welcome. I helped bring them in. I put them in hotels. I also love a Rwandan. I love me a stubby Rwandan. In fact, I love all illegals because they are the ones that vote for us. So if you go to any of the Labour strongholds, Luton, Leicester, Birmingham, Bradford, all you'll find is Muslims, and we can buy their vote for 20 quid. But then we got beaten by reform. So now we say, we cannot stand illegals. We are the ones that will control the border. You can trust us. We will stop them coming.
Keir Starmer appeared visibly shaken, as if caught in a political storm he never anticipated. Tired, uncertain, and clearly struggling to control the chaos unfolding around him, he had just endured a scathing verbal onslaught from Katie Hopkins, and it was every bit as ruthless as expected. Hopkins, known for her unfiltered approach and fierce debating style, delivered a relentless barrage aimed squarely at Starmer's waning credibility. Her words cut deep, leaving the Labour leader looking stunned and exposed. His response? Hesitant and uncertain, the image of a man caught off guard, facing both collapsing public confidence and the weight of his own missteps. It was a defining moment of visible disarray, one that underscored the growing doubts about his ability to lead.
Here's the thing, Keir. I've had a thought that fixes a lot of your problems. So, you're looking to put boots on the ground in Ukraine, specifically Kyiv. I thought, why don't you get all the people that had a Ukraine flag on their social media profile? Obviously, they had to take down their NHS one and their LGBTQ one to put up the Ukraine one. But those people, and the people who took in a Ukrainian into their homes like a little pet, you know, just for Christmas. The people that are like, oh yeah, we've got one. Yeah, we've got a Ukrainian family. Yeah. We've got a Ukrainian family. Yeah, because we're a better kind of person. Yeah.
Keir Starmer has spent the past year trying to convince Britain that he's a leader of substance, a man of conviction and principle, not just another carefully manufactured figure shaped by strategists and focus groups. But the public isn't convinced. One moment, he's pledging loyalty to Brexit as if it were a lifelong cause. The next, he's stumbling through trade policy like an unprepared intern fumbling a presentation. And whenever he appears to show a flash of resolve, it often feels borrowed, a temporary performance rather than genuine leadership. The result is an image of a man still searching for his political identity, caught between conviction and calculation.
Comrades, my name is Keir Starmer, and I'm here to fuck the foundations. When I became your Prime Minister, not only did I get new hair and glasses provided by a donor who now has full access to 10 Downing Street and my bedroom, we were promised three things. Number one, we would be fully costed and fully funded. We're so fully funded and fully costed, we're essentially just like Katie Price or HS2 or the public sector in Argentina pre-Milei, depending on your sense of humour. In order to make the £22 billion hole in the budget even worse, we have spunked a whole bunch of cash at train drivers, and junior doctors. This guarantees two things. Number one,
Katie Hopkins stormed into the political conversation with her trademark force, blunt, unapologetic, and impossible to ignore. Cutting through the fog of political spin, she turned her focus squarely on Keir Starmer's carefully manufactured image, a mix of bureaucratic stiffness and forced charm that's never quite convinced the public. With her characteristically unfiltered style, Hopkins stripped away the polish, exposing what she described as a hollow performance beneath the surface. Starmer's composure didn't hold. His response faltered almost instantly. The image of a leader struggling to project authority while lacking the conviction to back it up. It was a moment that laid bare the widening gap between presentation and genuine leadership.
Keir Starmer has been in Italy with Meloni. So you've got a left-wing, radical left-wing human rights guy over with what would be labelled as far-right Meloni in Italy. Now, I appreciate many of you will know much of this already, but it bears repeating at some level. Firstly, Meloni has been very successful at getting migrant numbers down. She's done that by, number one, hitting where they leave. So Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, she's making deals with those guys to stop the boats.
While Keir Starmer drifted through press conferences as lifeless as a dinner table where Brexit is off limits, Katie Hopkins showed no hesitation in diving straight into the fight. With her trademark sharpness, she sliced through Starmer's vague talking points not with policy jargon, but with the precision of someone writing a scathing review. Only this time, she wasn't taking aim at a bad hotel, she was tearing into Labour's leadership, finding it a 1-star rating and a blistering reality check. As for Starmer's so-called economic vision, if staring blankly into the distance while pretending to have a plan counts as strategy, then the bar for leadership has never been lower. For months, he's followed the Conservatives like a confused spectator, cautiously circling their fiscal agenda and occasionally muttering about responsibility with all the conviction of a man reading from someone else's notes. Then Hopkins stepped in, direct, unapologetic, and cutting through the noise. Her question was simple, and it hit hard. Key. Beyond hollowing Labour into a shell of its former self, what exactly are you responsible for?
Keir Starmer having an affair with his voice coach. I know, dog. I know. Disbelief. I mean, I think we all have some questions, don't we? Question one. Why do guys always have affairs with people that look exactly like the wife they already had? I mean, if you've already got that wife, what's the point of having an affair with another woman who looks exactly the same as the wife that you apparently don't want? Why not pick someone, you know, super exciting, maybe with massive boobs, or a lady from another continent with an enormous bottom? I mean, just something completely different to what you've already got. Why are you still shopping in the same supermarket?
Every time Keir Starmer talks about growth, economists across Britain seem to collectively sigh as if they've been asked to split timber with a teaspoon. His economic strategy appears to rely less on momentum and more on monotony, hoping that a stagnant economy might somehow revive itself through sheer boredom. He speaks often of productivity, innovation, and investment, repeating them like a mantra, yet never seems to spark any real confidence. Starmer may have a spreadsheet ready for every theoretical scenario, but when it comes to actionable plans, the details vanish. Watching him navigate the economy can feel like watching someone try to jumpstart a car with the wrong tools. Plenty of effort, no ignition. Then there's immigration, a political tightrope where Starmer moves cautiously, trying to appease both left and right while satisfying neither. His positions remain so vague that even a bowl of plain porridge might seem bold by comparison. Katie Hopkins seized on that weakness with her usual bluntness, shattering through the deflection and asking the question many are now voicing. Starmer deliberately turning Britain's borders into a revolving door, leaving the public exasperated and the policy direction uncertain.
Finally, Keir Starmer says he's going to have a peace talk for Ukraine. Peace talks for Ukraine. Oh, yes, I'm going to have peace talks. Yeah, so what did you do for the last 3 years? Oh, yeah, bugger all. And now Trump's coming to fix the problem, and you want some of his success? Please, you're like a tick on a bloody dog. The last time the EU leaders were together, they took their jackets off in solidarity with Zelensky. Oh, do you think he'll take me up the
We've never seen anything this gay since the last time, I don't know, Macron and Brigitte did a little walkabout.
Keir Starmer's speeches are hard to ignore, not for their inspiration, but for their painfully predictable monotony. Each delivery feels over-rehearsed, mechanical, and devoid of energy, as though he's reciting lines from a script written by committee. His attempts at charisma land somewhere between a drained battery and a half-stifled sneeze, brief, awkward, and instantly forgettable. Katie Hopkins spotted it immediately, positioning herself as the unflinching critic of what she called the one-man snoozefest that is Starmer's leadership. She didn't hold back, asking the uncomfortable but necessary questions. Why does he confuse caution with leadership? And why does every crisis prompt the same uninspired response? We'll look into it, a phrase that sounds more like a bureaucratic shrug than a plan of action. Then came his rhetoric on law and order, bold in words, hollow in delivery. Starmer tries to project strength, but it often comes across as forced, like a child pretending to be stern at the dinner table. His record as director of public prosecutions tells a similar story, heavy on paperwork, light on impact. Hopkins didn't waste time on polite debate. She went straight to the point. If Starmer's brand is built on being safe and steady, where's the evidence? All we've seen, she argued, is another empty promise, the political equivalent of buying a gym membership in January and never showing up.
Do I think Starmer has seen Angela's Furburger? Oh no. I believe, personally, my personal opinion is that Keir Starmer's gay. He seems gay to me. My gaydar goes off, but in a bad way, not a good gay. Like a gay, like a Macron gay, a Trudeau gay, shady little bastard gay. So I would say Keir Starmer's gay. Yeah, that would be my personal opinion. And undoubtedly what will happen now is Channel 4 News, as happened this week, will be given advance warning in order to come with the West Midlands police force, because they're big supporters of mine.
Keir Starmer's latest pledge to the working class was presented as a grand vision, but in reality, it landed closer to political theater than economic strategy. His carefully staged man of the people routine, complete with a visit to Greg's and a sausage roll in hand, looked less like authenticity and more like a scripted scene for a Channel 4 reality special. Katie Hopkins wasted no time dissecting the act, branding it a hollow stunt, the political equivalent of donning a high-vis jacket for a quick photo op beside a forklift. And she wasn't alone in that view. Starmer's leadership style increasingly resembles a holding pattern, quiet, cautious, and perpetually non-committal. When the NHS strikes, he stays silent. When trains grind to a halt, silence. Even as the climate crisis looms, he maintains the same breathless stillness, as though political calm alone might substitute for leadership. Hopkins cut straight to the heart of it, calling out what many have begun to notice, but few openly say. Starmer's leadership is built on calculated vagueness. He confuses silence for wisdom and stillness for strength. But behind the polished pauses lies a troubling absence of courage, of conviction, and of the charisma needed to inspire a nation.
Because as I have said before, as many of you are fully aware, those who control the movement of human flesh, a slave trade unlike anything ever seen before in the past, are the leaders of the major religions, the leaders of political dynasties, and the banking scions, and the global leadership.
Keir Starmer's environmental pledges continue to face mounting skepticism, and for good reason. His promises sound ambitious on paper, but every time corporate donors raise an eyebrow, the details seem to quietly vanish. Net zero by 2050 may headline the manifesto, yet the fine print reads more like a disclaimer, only if it doesn't upset Range Rover drivers. Starmer positions himself as a champion of the planet, but his caution turns climate policy into a balancing act of appeasement. The message is clear: he'll go green, just not if it risks votes or funding. Katie Hopkins didn't hold back, dismissing his climate commitments as pure political window dressing. In her words, Starmer's approach is like hanging fairy lights on a sinking ship, decorative, but ultimately pointless. And just when you think his leadership couldn't appear more hollow, his education policy arrives to prove otherwise. Starmer talks of opportunity for all, yet offers no clarity on what that means in practice. More exams? Fewer teachers? Symbolic gestures and empty slogans seem to be the only constants. In the end, his proposals manage the near impossible uniting teachers, students, and parents under one sentiment: frustration.
So the deals aren't go stop the boats. The deals are, if you stop the boats, we're going to invest in you. So investments in trade, investments in deals, in infrastructure or whatever. So she's funding development of those countries in order for them to work with her and stop the damn boats. And she's done brilliantly well. Numbers are down by about 65%, which, you know, historically, when I was there on the shores of southern Italy, was an absolute flood. The other thing she's done in a two-pronged attack is to offshore migrants. So if they arrive from a safe country, they are immediately offshored in Albania. She's moving them to Albania. They're held there.
The Italian Prime Minister's approach to migration has been strikingly pragmatic and, by most measures, effective. Rather than simply pledging to stop the boats, her government has struck deals that hinge on mutual benefit, investment in exchange for cooperation. Nations that work to stem illegal crossings receive targeted funding for trade, infrastructure, and development. The results speak volumes. Migrant arrivals are reportedly down by around 65%, a dramatic shift compared to the uncontrolled surges seen in previous years along southern Europe's coasts. Her strategy doesn't end there. In a bold second phase, migrants arriving from safe countries are now being offshored to Albania. They're processed there, effectively breaking the chain of immediate entry into the EU. It's a two-pronged model, deterrence backed by diplomacy, and one that has clearly delivered results. Katie Hopkins, never one to miss a well-timed jab, drew a sharp contrast, mocking Keir Starmer's education promises as assigning homework to a ghost. The metaphor stuck because it fit. While Starmer delivers endless speeches on boosting opportunity, his party seems to be quietly dismantling the very structures that create it. And if his domestic platform looks uncertain, his foreign policy fares little better. His diplomacy has all the finesse of a man reading from a manual mid-dance. Cautious, awkward, and utterly unconvincing. Behind the polished tone lies a hollow script of recycled platitudes about upholding international norms. Its politics by placeholder deliberately vague, carefully safe. Hopkins, ever the provocateur, summed it up with a sting. Is this the leader of the opposition, or a customer service agent reading off a call script? Then comes Starmer's final refuge, his supposed integrity. He markets it as steady leadership, but under scrutiny, it feels more like inertia. Ask him a tough question, and he short-circuits into rehearsed, mechanical answers. In politics, integrity should mean courage in motion. But in Starmer's world, it too often looks like standing perfectly still with the task force waiting to study why nothing ever moves.
If you've already got Sainsbury's, why are you going back there? Second up, if you're a voice coach and you're going to have an affair, why would you choose Keir Starmer? Why would you make that your hill to die on? That's your entire professional reputation. I mean, sure, if it was like Richard E. Grant, or, you know, Hugh Grant, or actually Grant Mitchell for that matter, you know, somebody good at speaking, why would you end your professional days on a guy that sounds like he's breathing through a tube and doesn't have a nose? I mean, that's before we go into any of the other questions about why you'd want to have sex with a guy that dull. And finally,
Katie Hopkins wasted no time going for the jugular, dissecting Keir Starmer's contradictions with her trademark precision. As she put it, you can't champion integrity while dodging scrutiny at every turn. Starmer often presents himself as the embodiment of honesty, yet his evasiveness under pressure tells a different story. It's the image of a man standing at a bus stop, briefcase in hand, unsure of where he's going but determined to look busy while waiting. Then came her most cutting strike. The word change. Starmer repeats it like a mantra. He promises it, brands himself with it, and builds entire speeches around it. Yet, the definition remains stubbornly unclear. Change from what to what? Hopkins distilled it with biting clarity. Starmer isn't driving transformation, he's merely the blank screen before it starts. If change had a face, she quipped, it certainly wouldn't be Keir Starmer's. Change would, at the very least, look like someone who's shown an emotion in the last decade. It was satire wrapped around a truth that stung the growing perception of Starmer as more presentation than personality. Inside Labour HQ, one can imagine the uneasy aides scrambling for a retort, perhaps even thumbing through a thesaurus in search of a synonym for change that might finally land. And that's the picture Hopkins painted. Keir Starmer, the man, the myth, the political screensaver, endlessly polite, impeccably rehearsed, and profoundly uninspiring. Against him stood Katie Hopkins, unsparing and sharp, cutting through the theater of politics with the blunt clarity of someone who's seen the script too many times to pretend it still matters.
It would be great if I could be Prime Minister. I would make it such that people who wanted to make Britain great, they get help to do that, they get free parking, they get reduced taxes, they get whatever incentivises the grafters, the workers, small businesses and wealthy individuals.
Breaking news here in batshit bonkers Britain, where Keir Starmer's homes have been firebombed. Now, clearly, it is not okay to firebomb anyone's home, even if they are a complete...
The clash may be over, but the political fallout still hangs heavy over Westminster, a faint glow of unresolved accountability flickering beneath the surface. And let's be clear, this isn't about endorsing Katie Hopkins or her worldview. It's about acknowledging the rare audacity she displayed cutting through the suffocating politeness that's come to define Britain's political class and forcing the nation to confront a question too many have avoided. Why is Keir Starmer still playing the part of leader when he can't seem to find the switch that turns the lights on? Starmer has become the political equivalent of a screensaver, always visible, gently drifting, but incapable of sparking real movement. Hopkins, in her typically unrestrained fashion, drove the point home with brutal precision, exposing the uncomfortable truth behind Britain's political culture. We've started applauding presence over performance. It's a damning indictment that in the current climate, simply showing up in a suit with a tie and a neatly printed PDF now passes for leadership.
One day, the powerful that run the world decide that you need to go. They've got their eye on you and you see signs of it in all different places. My daughter's bank account being cancelled. You're getting refused for life insurance. Your driving licence being sent back to you cancelled. You see these things happening and you think, that's odd. And then all of a sudden, one day they decide. The chief rabbi, the board of deputies, that's the organisation that runs the Jewish synagogues, the Muslim council, all on the same day, calling for my removal, calling for my silencing, calling for my job. They've got it all ready to go and they work as a circle. They are watching you.
Let's give Katie Hopkins credit for saying out loud what many in Westminster only dare to whisper, too cautious, too career conscious, or too polite to confront head on. Is Keir Starmer truly leading, or has he simply mastered the art of looking composed while being completely directionless? Britain doesn't need another human PowerPoint presentation, polished, procedural, and utterly devoid of life, nor a leader who seems perpetually on the verge of apologizing for taking up space. What the country is crying out for is conviction, leadership with clarity, courage, and substance. At the very least, it deserves a leader whose authority isn't an accident of tailoring and media training, but the result of genuine purpose and presence.